Our last speaker of the day is very special. I mean, all the speaker today was special, but this one, the last one, is personally very special because Joey and I overlap during my PhD years, and we were together also since she joined here at Yale. So over the decades, she has been my very valuable colleague, my favorite colleague. So when I'm asked to introduce her here, then I was thinking, what's the best way to describe her? Then three words come to my mind. She is really, truly a captivating writer and dedicated educator, and also a very innovative thinker. She's very innovative. And Joy, actually, she earned her doctoral degree from Harvard, and then she joined our Yale SOM, and currently she's teaching one of the most popular courses here at Yale School of Management. And this course has inspired her international bestseller book, Influence is Your Superpower. Through her book and her lecture, she is not only shaping young minds, but also shaping global policy from the Google to Metal. Her impact knows no bounds. So, in a sense, but what truly set Joy apart is her true commitment to empowering others. And clearly, I'm one of them. And today, she's going to share her wisdom, empowering us all to harness the power of influence for the greater good. So, please join me in warmly welcoming Zoe Chance.
Thank you. You're the best. My wish for all of you is that you someday get to get introduced by Ji-Won. This is going to be an interactive workshop. Thank you for sticking around for it. And in order to interact, we'll need to be close to each other. So please grab your stuff and move. We can skip these front rows, that's fine, but move front and center so that you're actually sitting with people. Okay? Come on in, come on down. Come toward the center and come toward the front, if you want to be part of the interactive workshop. And if you want to just observe and sit in the back, that's also totally fine. At some point, you will be invited to do an interactive exercise with a partner, so you really do need to be actually sitting next to someone, at least one person. I'll be asking you in a few minutes to think of the most charismatic person you have encountered. And before I do that, I'll share with you what happened when I got to be with the most charismatic person I've ever encountered. It had been my dream since I was a small child to get to see Prince in concert. And just a few years before he passed, that dream finally came true. And I got to visit his club in Vegas, Club 2121. And this was anticipated not just by me, but by the couple of hundred rest of us who were so excited, packed in tightly in this loud, smoky, because it's Vegas, and dark club. We're waiting. He's 2 hours late, and the anticipation has been building. Finally, the lights come up. He takes the stage, grabs the mic, and he looks, I am sure, directly into my eyes. And he says, "Are we alone?" And I turn to my friend Eldar, who's next to me, and I say, "I think I'm gonna faint." And then the woman on the other side, who is a stranger, drops down unconscious. Paramedics come in, they're loading her onto a stretcher, and I asked, "Oh my God, have you ever seen this before?" And they're like, "Lady, it's not the first time." Prince had that electric charisma that I had only heard of, like the Beatles and apparently Clinton. This electric charisma strong enough to knock people unconscious. But it turned out when I learned more about him that not only was he not at all born with that level of charisma, he was actually super shy. And some of you who are big fans know this already. He was so shy that when Warner Brothers came to scout him for the very first time, they watched him play, and he was so nervous that he slowly turned his back to the audience. He was singing, and he sounded great in the music, but when he talked, he could barely speak above a whisper. They said, "Okay, little dude, we will sign you, but you will never go on tour." So that was what happened. He had a #1 hit on the Billboard charts. It was "I Want to Be Your Lover," and he was still not allowed to go on tour. But Rick James, who had his Super Freak tour going on at this point, was like, "Hey, little Prince, would you like to open for me?" Prince says, "Sure." So he shows up as the opening act, and again, he sucks on stage. Plus, he's wearing women's underwear way before his time of gender fluidity, and he gets booed off the stage. But during that time, the tour, while he's opening up for Rick James, he is watching and practicing and modeling Rick James, doing the things that Rick James does. By the end of the tour, Prince is getting standing ovations, and Rick James, according to Rick James, is jealous. What we're going to do is practice and discuss in the next 49 minutes a whole bunch of skills of influence and insights related to charisma, specifically about connecting with human beings. And then at the very end, I've recruited Emma, who didn't know until about 5 minutes ago that she was going to do this last part where she's going to practice the thing that Prince did that knocked people unconscious. But that is not going to be our bar of success for Emma. Please don't knock anyone unconscious. And Emma's like, "Oh my God, what did I agree to?" Because I didn't tell her this part. So my promise to you is that you will get from this session a minimum of one concrete thing that you're excited to put into action that will help you be more charismatic as you spread your great ideas. Please be listening for that, and I invite you to write it down so it doesn't flit away, okay? I started this with a story, which is sometimes appropriate and sometimes not, but since all of you spend time on stages when it is appropriate to tell stories, I thought that you might be interested to know a little bit about the neuroscience of stories and why these can be effective, and particularly why they can be influential and persuasive. First of all, stories can be more memorable, and they are more memorable. Jennifer Acker here on the left is a marketing professor at Stanford. Some of you may be familiar with her work. And some of her research has found, I'm not saying this will always be the number, but she has found that when people hear facts, or they hear facts wrapped in a story, they remembered the stories 22 times better than the facts alone. So stories are more memorable. They can also be more persuasive. And this research was a team that was writing in a legal journal and studying judges, attorneys, law students, and other legal professionals, where they asked them, "Would you like to have just the facts, or would you like to hear the narrative around the facts?" And they're like, "Just the facts, ma'am." However, when they got the narrative along with the facts, it was twice as persuasive. Storytelling is memorable and persuasive because, like charisma, it's actually an embodied experience. What's going on in your brain is you are having hormones that give you an experience when you're listening to a story that's told well. And some of these hormones include dopamine. Dopamine is what you get when there's excitement or uncertainty or curiosity. Like even just when somebody tells you, "In a few minutes, I'm going to ask you," and this open loop gives you a little dopamine hit. Surprise gives you a little dopamine hit, which increases focus, motivation, and memory. When you hear a story that has a relatable character in it, you get an experience of oxytocin, which you have probably heard of as the bonding hormone between mothers and kids, but it's also teams, in groups. Affiliates, oxytocin increases trust, empathy, generosity, bonding, and this feeling of we're on the same side. That relatable character could be you, or it could be another person. When you get an opportunity to laugh, when you feel endorphins, this puts you in a better mood. Of course, it also lowers stress and reduces pain. So these are some of the hormonal experiences that are available to you as a storyteller to be offering to other people. However, so what is charisma and how can you do it? Close your eyes and picture the person that you have witnessed or experienced as being highly charismatic. And then ask yourself, and I invite you to open your eyes and start writing when you have a person. Ask yourself, what is one quality that makes this person charismatic? What is something that they exhibit or something that they do? Go ahead and write this down. We are doing insights research right here. Very high tech. And we'll make a list. Can I ask you, Matt, what's one quality of your charismatic person?
He was to the point.
To the point. Thank you. Steve? Yes, Steve.
Humorous.
Humorous. Thank you. Sohail.
Unafraid of admitting their shortcomings.
Ooh. Unafraid. So there was to the point, humorous, unafraid of admitting their shortcomings.
Good looking.
Thank you. Good looking. Confidence. Thank you.
I also wrote confidence.
And confident. Thank you, Emma. Yes.
He lets me know I'm important.
Thank you. Lets me know I'm important to him. Let's hear. Thank you. Authentic. And what? What kind of body language? So physical appearance like good looking, or body language like something they do? Like what kind of position? Okay, like smiling, for example. Thank you.
I'd say inclusive.
Inclusive. Thank you.
Good sense of humor.
And a good sense of humor. Thank you. All right. What we have here is, I just did a statistical analysis, and we have a two-factor model. This is what I find literally every single time I ask groups of people this question, and we crowdsource a definition that is based on actual traits and qualities of individual people, is that it breaks down in this way. Before I tell you exactly how it breaks down, I'll explain the reason that I do this is because when I started researching charisma, as a result of students asking me for charisma as the number one thing they wanted to get better at related to influence, I went to the academic research, and the world's expert is a guy named Jan Antonakis. He's in Switzerland, and he has a 7-factor model, and I'm sure it's very accurate, but as far as actually teaching charisma, like, you can't possibly do 7 things at once. So when I ask people, all right, what is charisma? They say it makes people pay attention to you. But you could run through this auditorium in your underwear and you would not be charismatic. So it's clearly not just that. What I find is that also trying to be charismatic makes you uncharismatic, right? You're just kind of a jackass. But what happens is about 90% of all of the qualities that spring to mind fall into categories of confidence, like to the point, unafraid of admitting their shortcomings, confident and confident again, or connection, like humorous, lets me know I'm important, authentic, smiling, inclusive. And then some of them, I don't know if they're related to charisma as an interpersonal kind of trait, but they do make us pay attention, like good looking. So those of you who I didn't ask, think about, did your trait relate to confidence or connection, or possibly even both of them? Now, this is something that you can work with, right? You do know how to display confidence. You do know what it takes to connect with people. And we will dig into this a little bit in a fun way. Okay? We're going to start with the silliest one. This is something I'm embarrassed to say was taught to me as a Harvard PhD student at the business school there, when consultants were brought in to deal with the problem that women were getting worse participation grades than men were. Their solution was women don't know how to raise their hands, and they need to be taught. We're going to do the charismatic hand raise, but I will tell you, this is not just for women. This is actually a great skill in a group, in a conference like this, when you have Q&A, and you know when you're on the stage or when you're teaching or leading a meeting, when it's a large group of people, someone who raises their hand like this, like, you feel like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to trouble you, I don't want to hurt you, or I don't know if you've had your hand raised for 6 minutes and you're going to take us back to before, right? So together, put your stuff down if you have stuff in your lap. And the charismatic hand raise, like the other things we're going to practice, is about directing attention. And it's embodied. And I will invite you to lean back and thrust your hand forward toward me with your attention directly on me. And we're going to do this 3 times with me saying, ready, go. Okay, ready, go. Even faster. Ready, go. And with your attention directly on me. Ready, go. Okay, excellent, you got it. Let's practice the charismatic posture. Now, you might have seen this TED Talk, or you might be familiar with Amy Cuddy's work on power poses. The way that power poses have been researched with high power and low power body language has to do with, in a placebo way, making you feel good before you go and interact with somebody. And what really matters for charisma is how you are actually acting in the presence of that person, right? So this is about in the presence of other people. We'll practice low power body language, high power body language, and then what I'm going to call charismatic body language. And in order to do this, it's going to be fun to see how it looks. So to mirror each other, stand up and then turn toward the middle line right here. And if you are directly facing the person right next to you, hi. So facing the midline, basically wherever you're standing, you're facing the opposite side of the room so that you'll be able to see other people. And what Amy Cuddy calls low power body language is just like body language that you might use when you're just really tired, right? So just let your shoulders hunch over, maybe cross your arms, and look at people across from you, and you can see what this looks like. And maybe not super charismatic. Do you want to do whatever it is that they say or follow their great ideas? Or do you kind of want to just steer clear, right? Probably steer clear. All right. Shake it out a little bit. And high power body language, let's practice the Wonder Woman pose. So hands on your hips, chest thrust out, and look at the people across the room. Is this charismatic? I don't know, it looks like to me super awful, and I want to run away if I see anyone approaching me like this. Okay, shake it out a little bit. charismatic body language is, it's not that there's only one thing that you can do with your body, and I actually don't want you to be overly focused self-consciously on exactly what is every part of my body doing. But what really helps is actually to display and feel confident and connected by doing what high power body language is supposed to do, which is open up your chest and your lungs, relax your diaphragm, and allow you to breathe a little bit better and speak from your natural low register. And you do this easily by, you can close your eyes if you want, imagine an invisible string from your sternum, your breastbone, lifting up gently into the sky, and just let your arms be down at your sides, and your chest opens, but not thrusting out, and your shoulders just tilt back a bit, and just feel yourself breathing. And open your eyes and see the people across the room looking confident and connected, not like jackasses, not like they're scared. This is a charismatic place to start from. Stay standing, and this is going to be an awkward part. We'll practice the charismatic smile. First, so if it's about confidence and connection, where some of us go, I mean, it's not like smiling is wrong, but a type of smile that's not charismatic is the kind of smile that I tend to do because I'm just a smiley person. Living here in New Haven, cold climate, in the wintertime, I'll be walking down the sidewalk by myself and my teeth freeze because I'm like, na, 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 smiling for no reason at all. And when people see me smiling like that, I'm just a happy person, but it has nothing to do with them, right? A charismatic smile is when you're not like, nah, nah, nah. You're going about your day, and then you see someone, and as you catch their eye, you smile at them. So what we'll try to do is give people the experience of causing you to smile, and that is the charismatic, confident, connected smile. But it's very awkward when we do it all at once, but we're going to do it anyway. So facing the center of the room, unsmile, make eye contact with someone, and allow that person to spark your smile. Do this 5 times with 5 different people. Go. Okay. Fantastic, you can sit down. You survived that part of it so far. Confidence and connection. Now, take up your thing to write with and on, and we'll play a guessing game. This is a quiz. To predict who says I and other first-person pronouns like me, my, mine more often. I'll show you some groups, and you predict out of those 2 groups who says it more. And this is based on research that has, over a period of now decades, looking at spoken and written language, formal and informal, at least in the languages of English and Spanish and Arabic, and I don't know what other languages it's been. So in each row, pick and write down your guess of who says I more. Leaders or followers, older or younger people, etc. Okay. Market research again. Let's test the predictions. Raise your hand if you said leaders. Followers? I see some charismatic hand raises, awesome. Older people? Younger people? Richer? Poorer? Happy? Depressed? Angry? Fearful? Good students? Poor students? Men? Women? Thank you. Do you want to know the answer? Everyone on the right. Did anybody get this correct who doesn't already know the results or have read my book or anything? Okay, sir, in the middle, what is your theory about what those groups of people on the right might have in common? And what's your name?
You know, actually, I went through there and
She wants to know your name.
Yeah,
oh, Tim,
Tim, hi.
by the way, I assigned your book in my class.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Okay, but then you have read this, but I think that you're gonna, but you, all right, Tim.
But I figured it had to be either all on the left or all on the right. That it was either, you know, and you couldn't, there had to be something about that line of people that was in common. And ultimately, people who use I were less confident, less,
Yeah, why would that be?
probably because they think that more of the world revolves around them.
If I'm unconfident, I would think the world revolves around me? What, over here?
Try to protect yourself. They're responsible
There's-
for their lack of confidence.
There's definitely something that I need, right? If I feel unconfident or disempowered, and my attention can easily be self-focused because I have to care about, for example, what other people are thinking about me. And think about in a situation like the last time you've been sick or in pain, you can't possibly get out of your own head. And the self-consciousness comes out in your language. Women, by the way, not just women, but women versus men on average tend to do more saying I with diminishers. Like, I could be wrong, but I'm sorry, I was just wondering. And these diminishers are ways of showing that we're not a threat. And it's effectively doing the not a threat thing, but we're imagining that we are paying attention to the other person and how they feel, but really what we're thinking about is, what do you think of me? And we're not effectively building rapport and having them like us. It's fine if you're not a threat, but it's actually kind of hard to pay attention to, right? These kinds of diminishers. And when we are really feeling confident and connected, the charismatic perspective is that you can have your attention out. You can have your attention on another person. You can have your attention on a project. I'm not saying don't talk about yourself or don't say I. It's an important way of getting to know people and being vulnerable. And it's also just really normal. It's not that charismatic people don't say I, but that anti-charisma is self-consciousness. Now, a problem of this if you say, okay, well, I would like to be doing less of the self-focused I, me thing, but if you are self-monitoring to notice when you're saying I, then you're exactly making yourself self-conscious, which is the opposite of what you wanted to do. So what I would recommend, if you feel like it, is doing an email audit, which I'll show you in a second. And by the way, this is a just random research sidebar, but some researchers who study gender and power happen to believe, based on everything that they've read and everything that they've learned from their studies, that many gender differences are power differences in disguise. And one of the reasons for that is that they see these behavioral differences, and when I say gender differences in behavior, that they diminish it in countries that have more economic parity between genders. And I'm one of these researchers who believes this, but it's not universal. An email audit just looks like when you're sending an email, especially if it's an email that you're kind of uncomfortable about, and especially if it's gotten a little wordy, before you send it off, you scan through and you say, how much of that was I, me, mine, and do I want to shift that to focusing on the other person? So the researcher who's done the most studies in this whole area looking at pronouns and power is a guy named James Pennebaker at the University of Texas. And he did an email audit on himself, and despite being the world's expert on this topic, he found he had the same patterns of behavior. So this was when he needed to ask people in his department about moving their offices. And he saw when he was sending an email to a professor who had more power and status than he did, more status, he was saying, I've been trying to avoid this. I think I may need to ask you. Like, I can even tell if he's actually asking the guy, like, this is the diminishers that I'm talking about. And then when he's writing to a PhD student, he's like, hey, would you be willing to move your office? And the dot dots are important, right? So he's writing a friendly email, but this is the question in the middle of it. And this is the kind of example of just the different perspective of self-consciousness, diminishing ourselves, and how anti-charismatic that is, and how hard to pay attention. The secret to charisma is simply to get their attention, give your attention. You can do it in many different ways, and you already do. Little bits of science for you, because you're nerdy, and that's why you're here, because you like insights, like I do too. One is say their name, and this has been advice since at least Dale Carnegie. Many of you have probably read How to Win Friends and Influence People, and he says something like, a person's name is the most beautiful sound in their language. And that's very poetic, but it wasn't tested until 2007 when some neuroscientists decided to put people in an fMRI scanner and see what happens when they are hearing their name and other words and other people's names. And what they found is that a person's own name lights up uniquely the self-referential network in their brain. And this is why when you're sleeping, somebody can whisper, Emma, and you can easily wake up, right? Or in a crowded room, somebody says your name and you look over. They actually did another test where they tested the minds of people in a vegetative state and found that even in a vegetative state, hearing their name lit up their brain in a special way. By the way, this is a reason that it's not just very good to learn people's names, but learn how to pronounce people's names. Because you can imagine if you're not pronouncing their name right, or not calling them by the name that they're used to being called, even if they might not mind it, it just doesn't give them this same like, oh, they're talking about me kind of neurological experience. Another thing to do, even more perhaps than you already do, is ask people questions to give them an opportunity to get to know them and let them talk about themselves, be curious, and talking about themselves activates the primary reward network. And the primary reward network is just the basic network of neural linkages that's associated with pleasurable experiences, like eating chocolate, or winning money, or having pleasurable sex. It all activates the same neural network as talking about ourselves. This is based on research by Diana Tamir at Princeton. Some research by Alison Wood Brooks and her colleagues at Harvard has found that the number one determining factor between who people like and who they don't like is, did that person ask them follow-up questions? And this is based on a series of studies, professional and personal interactions, where maybe you'll be at a networking event and they ask who you liked. Maybe you will be on in a speed dating situation and they'll ask who you liked. It's just, did they seem like they really wanted to get to know you? Did they seem like they cared and like they were listening? A follow-up question isn't just a second question that you were planning to ask, but it's a question based on what they just told you, showing that you were listening and you really wanted to know. The key to listening deeply is to have a goal when you're listening, and we're going to practice some different goals so that you get to experience what this is like. Find a partner who will consent to be your partner. One partner. And actually, I'll tell you, we'll practice this first part. This piece might be the one thing that you take away from this session with me, which is how to get people's attention in a loud room. And you teach them, okay, when you see me raise my hand, you raise your hand and close your mouth. If you see someone else raise their hand, you raise your hand and close your mouth. Okay, so we're gonna do that and find somebody who consents to be your partner and find out each other's birthdays. Go. If you're in a group of 3, it's okay. Okay, thank you. That was the practice round of raise your hand and close your mouth. If you're in a group of 3, it's okay, but you could also, if you have more or fewer than one partner and you'd like to find one, raise your hand. Okay, looks like there are a couple of groups of 3, we'll go with that. The person who has the soonest birthday will go first speaking, okay? And then you'll rotate. We have 4 rounds. If you're in pairs, you'll switch off A, B, A, B. If you're in a group of 3, figure it out. We'll do a series of 1-minute speaking and listening, okay? For the first one, the prompt for A to speak about is what would constitute a perfect day for you? And B, or B and C, just listen. Go. Thank you. Okay, rotating. B, for what in your life are you most grateful? And A, for 1 minute, listen to understand what they're thinking. Go. Thank you. Okay, switching back to A, or this is to C speaking. If you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be? And listener or listeners, listen to understand what they're feeling. Go. Thank you. Okay, last one. So if you're in a pair, switching roles again, if you're in a group of 3, this is back to the first person. If you knew that in 1 year you would die suddenly, is there anything you would change about the way you're living now, and why? Listen to understand what they're not saying. Go. Whew. You just got to know somebody really well. What did you notice, those of you who were listening at the beginning, when you're just listening, there's still a lot going on in your mind, like you're waiting to speak, you're relating this to your life, you're trying to show that you're listening, but it tends to get easier to listen when you have a specific goal for what you're listening for. So we can actually pay better attention to people when we're listening in an intentional way like this. And I would love it if during cocktails, after, if you debrief this with whoever you were doing the listening thing with, and let them know, what was that like for you? What was your experience as a speaker and listener? But I'm just packing interactive stuff into this session. And by the way, I'll be there if you have any questions. But Sohail, come up to the front. We're gonna all practice the deepest way of listening that I know. We'll do this together, and we're going to listen to my colleague, Sohail Gili. And I just told him, well, just invited him to do this demo with me. And we could be listening to someone about any kind of topic at all, and the type of listening that we're about to practice can also be especially helpful when there's a conflict. And it's so hard to listen when there's a conflict, because you're just running through your argument and you're gonna nail that person. But they can't listen to you until they feel heard. And if you listen in this way, not only will they feel heard, but you will be actually understanding them. So Sohail, I've invited you to share with us. Don't start yet, but I've just asked him, when you were a kid, was there anything that you wanted to be when you grew up? I don't know, Sohail, we've been working together for a few years, but I figure you don't know this about him either, probably. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna listen for values. We're gonna listen for what could be one of Sohail's deep values that's probably something that he's not saying. And it's deep at the level of, I don't know, I have no idea, justice or growth or connection, something so deep, okay? And then I'm gonna invite a few people to make guesses, okay? So listening for values. So could you tell us, Sohail, when you were a kid, what did you wanna be when you grew up? Oh, wait, sorry, I forgot. I have a microphone for you.
Oh, of course.
Before you wanted to be an economist. Unless you wanted to be an economist when you were tiny. Oh,
No,
okay,
I
good.
wanted to become an astronaut.
Oh.
So that one was crushed very easily. I assume many of us have had that aspiration.
You wanted to be an astronaut?
Yeah,
Yeah, why did you want to, what was it? What did you imagine about being an astronaut?
because it was cool. I would imagine being outside, looking at Earth from above and going to places where nobody has gone. And I thought that was going to be very cool. But then at some point in time, you notice that very, very few people are actually astronauts, and it may not be as interesting and exciting all the time. So you basically downgrade to something like professional soccer player.
And what was exciting about professional soccer player?
So the physical activity of it is very exciting, especially when you're a kid. And, you know, I think if you become somebody like Diego Maradona, that's something that everybody likes to do. But then, you know, that also gets crushed when you go play with your friends in the field and you're like, okay, I'm not really nearly as good. So that changes a little bit. You become a little more sort of realistically thinking, and you want to become a doctor.
And then you want to become a doctor, which is also, I guess, an aspiration that got derailed. So this is fabulous, and I love hearing this about you. And stay right here with me, and we're going to hear a few guesses, and you can just react like a normal person. So don't pretend that some guess is like absolutely perfect if it doesn't really resonate, because it's going to be fine if the guesses are off the mark. Let's hear somebody over here, a guess, and let's hear, it sounds like you care a lot about, and then you ask Sohail, yes. Sounds like you care a lot about adventures.
When I was a kid, yes.
Okay, when he was a kid, so that was a little bit equivocal. Yes, in the front. Here. Sounds like you care a lot about facts.
That I do now, yes.
So this was not at all something that he said, right? And it's not just that I do now, yes, but actually his whole tone of voice changed, and you heard like, yes. I am seen. How about someone in this section? Let's hear a guess. Yes. Sounds like you care a lot about being unique.
Okay, now I see the adventure piece. It's not about being unique. It's about doing things that are new experiences. Yeah.
Thank you. And what just happened here is exactly what tends to happen in a normal conversation when you're listening for someone's values. You're listening for the subtext of what do they really care about that they didn't say. You reflect it back, and you didn't hit it perfectly on the nose, but all that happens is they tell you, and they explain, and you get to know them better. How did it feel to have people guessing these things about you?
Interesting. Feels like, I would say, a therapy session with many therapists.
Okay. And when the guess was, it sounds like you care about being unique, what it looked like to me was that you were having, and maybe sounded like, because you said adventure, it sounded like you were having an insight about yourself in that conversation. That's so cool. And also, for me, at least, and like we've known each other for a few years, but I like you even better.
Oh,
Getting to have, yeah, like.
I can't like you better.
Oh, like just
You're already
getting to
maxed out.
have this brief interaction with someone, you can build rapport, and you, like even people that you already know, you can get to know them in a more intimate and beautiful way, reflecting back these kinds of values. So let's give a round of applause to Sohail.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Love that. And that kind of listening you can do with anyone, anytime, as soon as you leave. So it might be that that's the one thing that you pick to practice as you leave. It might be the hand-raising thing. Emma, I have invited also Emma Huff to do this next demonstration with me. And Emma is the president of, she's first year, so incoming president of our MBA Marketing Club. And anybody who might be interested in being involved in some way with our MBA Marketing Club, please talk. Are you going to be around at the reception, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So Emma's going to be around at the reception. And she's going to practice this hardest thing. But first, we're going to practice together some super easy stage presence things that in a former career, I actually used to be a professional actor and acting teacher and have done a lot of training in that, so I bring some of that to the charisma workshops that I teach. And when I'm teaching public speaking, I try to go super low level and super high level and teach things that even if you've trained in public speaking, they were probably too simple or too advanced for people to have coached you in. And some of the things that we practice come from these many paradoxes of charisma. The first one is that people listen with their eyes. And what this means is that when we're moving around they tend to have their attention easily distracted. So Emma, would you demonstrate what it, you have very solid stage presence. You've spent time in front of people and groups and stuff. Yeah, just by your body language, you're like, here I am, right? And not fidgeting at all. But let's see what it looks like if you're just fidgeting a little bit. And notice that your attention goes to Emma, right? What we'll practice and Emma will demonstrate, and then actually I'll invite you to stand up and mirror, is the full body pause. Anyone who has seen this show, I apologize for re-traumatizing you. Full body pause is just pausing with your entire body in a position that's comfortable, and this is helpful when you're waiting to speak. And waiting to speak happens, say, if you're being introduced or if you're on a panel. And when you're waiting to speak, full body pause, also put your attention on the speaker. So notice Emma be looking out at the audience, and your attention gets, even if Emma's pausing, maybe divided between the two of us. But if Emma directs her attention to me, go ahead and do that, then notice that your attention goes to me as well. So everyone on the stage should have their attention on the speaker, and that helps the audience have their attention on the speaker. And let's have you just feel in your body what a full body pause looks like. So stand up. And when you're waiting to speak, whatever position your body is comfortable in is pretty good. You can have hands in your pockets if you want, at your side if you want. You can lean back on one foot. You can have both feet, hands at your side. The one thing that I would say is, Emma and I will show you, maybe just don't do this. Let's show them what it looks like when our arms are crossed. Like, that's just the one thing that's kind of like, yeah, not that, but otherwise, whatever we're doing, that's all. Excellent, sit down. The pauses come in many different points of your talk, but including before you speak, when you take the stage, and then anytime you want to emphasize a point and get people's attention. They tend to last longer than you would expect because the stage is a time warp. And Emma, as you do this demo, and we're going to go together in a sec, like back with the people. As Emma does this demo, what she's going to be doing is showing us how to connect with a group of people. We do it one at a time. And we can connect not only with that individual, but with some other people who will feel it vicariously. What we tend to do, probably not you, Emma, but people who are not very experienced with public speaking, and definitely almost any of us when we're nervous, is that we just tend to scan, like we're scanning the savannah for threats. And when we're scanning, we're not connecting, and Emma will just practice connecting like Prince, one by one. So come with me around here. This exercise that you're going to do is called shining. And I've invited you to tell a story. What's the topic of your story?
My story is a homework assignment.
A homework assignment. Okay, I am intrigued. Now, audience, Emma needs to know if she's connecting with you. And the way that she will know is you will non-verbally show her, and you'll do it like this. Do me a favor, raise your hand, and you can, if you have, like rest it on the armrest or something so that it's not going to get too fatigued. And Emma, you're going to connect with one person at a time, talking to only one person until their hand goes down. You'll be focusing only on one human being. Eventually, they're going to feel it, and they'll put their hand down. And when they put their hand down, and by the way, anyone who feels it, put your hand down, even if you haven't been that person that Emma connects with. When they put their hand down, then you can shift your focus and talk to another person. But I'm talking to someone who hasn't felt it yet. He's like, no, maybe, okay. Then you can shift your focus and talk to one other person as you're telling your story, and it's just that one person until their hand goes down. And you shift your focus, and you find another person with their hand up. Okay? Ready?
I don't have
Okay.
a mic, so I'm just going to try to
Oh,
project.
sorry. No.
Okay.
Go. Let me grab your mic and find your person who you're going to start with. And as you're telling the story, Emma, it's not going to be like this perfectly fluent thing because like you connect with someone and then you pause and then you shift focus and then connect with the other person. So just let it be disjointed like that. And the challenge is as you're connecting with each person, try not to take your eyes off of them. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Who's your first person?
Over here.
Okay, great.
Congratulations.
Already felt it. You got it. All right. Choose somebody over here.
Okay, so when I started my undergraduate career, I made the really surprising decision to study Arabic. So I actually took 4 semesters of Arabic. It was the bane of my existence. And
So just so the audience can see and experience exactly what's going on, pause as soon as the person's hand goes
pause.
down.
Okay, got it.
Shift your focus to someone on the other part of the room. Talk to them until their hand goes, okay, so that they can observe it.
Got it.
This is great.
So do you know when you're learning languages how you have each unit of like a book and they all have some kind of theme? And the theme for this unit was explorers. And every exercise, it had the same set of, or every chapter had the same set of exercises. And one of the exercises, it was to write a composition. It was a 200-word composition. The unit was about explorers. And of course, I wrote about the one explorer everybody knows about, right? But the funny thing happened, and this also took me hours, by the way. I'm terrible at Arabic. So it took me a long time to write 200 words. And finally, I show up to class the next day. And all of my classmates are talking about who they wrote their composition about. Which I was thinking, there aren't that many options for explorers. One of my friends says, oh, I wrote mine about my mom. Another friend says, I wrote mine about my middle school science teacher. I'm getting very suspicious at this point. And they say, Emma, who did you write yours about? And I said, before I answer that question, what were we supposed to write about? And apparently, the real prompt, which I missed somewhere, was, who is the most responsible for your success in life? So maybe indirectly, I did okay. It was very distressing, and I went up to my Arabic teacher and I said, I'm so sorry, I wrote this about the wrong thing, but I still put in the effort. I used the vocabulary. Will you still grade it? And she looked at me and she said, Habibti, no. That's the story.
That is amazing. Wait, stay right here. Thank you. This was amazing. I can't believe how many people you connected with so quickly. And also, I didn't even get to tell you because you were like, bam, 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 connecting. For those of you who are practicing it, if they're not feeling it, and this is a fun exercise to practice with anyone that you're coaching in public speaking, if they're not feeling it, then you can approach a little closer and they'll be like, ooh, and they'll feel it. Okay, but you didn't even need to do that, so wait a second. Come on the stage with me, and so he'll come on the stage with me as well. Because there's one final thing that we're going to demonstrate, and we're almost done.
Can we find out which explorer you picked?
Christopher Columbus.
Thank you, but we're not done. If you would like to connect with me, so I'll be at the reception. Easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. You can also email me. I do have a book that Ji-Woong mentioned. I think both of you guys have this book. And so what that means is whoever wants to practice a charismatic hand raise, I will take the first two. One there. And just behind black sweater, hand still raised. Yes. Okay, come on up. These are yours. And then our final thing, just grab this. As we say thank you, this is the last important skill. Great, could you pass one to him as well? The last important skill of charismatic public speaking is don't forget to bask. Let us bask. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.